Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to HBCU Game Day. It is a Thursday. We have a news update for you. But first, my apologies. We are about 3 minutes late. With these technical things, sometimes things don't work, and you're like, it just worked like 5 minutes ago, and you don't know what to do. And my old school logic says unplug it, plug it back in, and it magically works. I don't know why. I consider myself a technical nerd, but sometimes you just unplug stuff, plug it back in, and it works. But we are here. You are here. And Vaughn Wilson is here, our favorite Florida man, who I have now renamed in the midst of this search for a head coach at Florida A&M University. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to welcome the man that we will now, henceforth and forever, refer to as Tan Rather, because he has all the updates for us. He is
I'll take
on
that.
it.
I'm a big fan of Dan Rather, so I will take that. That was the last time I could trust the news.
If you like Dan, well, his bosses might disagree. If you like Dan Rather, you'll love Tan Rather. He's coming to us from Tallahassee. In all seriousness, Vaughn, you in the middle of the morning, I think it was, you informed everyone at HBCU Game Day. We had some news. We had to go live again today. What is the news?
Well, let me just say that yesterday, a lot of things happened, when we went off of the air. Coach Billy Rolle, who, I proclaimed as my leading candidate for the head coaching position to replace Coach Willie Simmons, I've documented that he for years was a coach in Miami and was an educator in the Florida educational system. So his retirement process started in June, and so which is why he was not on the sidelines this year. It was always understood that he would come back in January. It was just understood. It was an unwritten that Coach Billy Rolle would rejoin the staff in January. Well, as it came close to January, he got misinformation that he would have to wait till June again. So yesterday he posted that, I'm enjoying retirement, and so I'm gonna basically pull my name out of the hat. That started a frenzy. He started getting calls from people who work in the Florida retirement system to dispute him and say, no, you actually are available to suspend your retirement process because you did 6 months. It was good for him to hear, and he immediately text, hey, I'm back in the boat. And that's when we started disseminating that information. It's in the middle of it. VP AD Sykes, she has a tough task ahead of her, because there are options. In our story, it says FAMU has two choices for head coach, not two people. It has two choices. It has a choice to maintain the system that has been put in place since 2018 when Willie Simmons came in. Who he brought in as his special assistant to the head coach was Billy Rolle, with his experience. Or to go outside of the FAMU fold and bring in another proven coach. She has some North Carolina roots, and we know that she's probably got some relations with Trey Oliver. We know that Fred McNair is out there. We know there are other people who are available. Mike Mentor for Campbell is another name that comes up. So FAMU has two choices. Continue the system that is in place, as I spoke of yesterday on our broadcast, a la the 49ers and how they just rode that program till the rails came off. The Dallas Cowboys, I can say that today since Simone is not on.
No Simone here, so you can have all the Cowboy talk you want. Go ahead.
The way the Dallas Cowboys replaced parts but kept on with that system until the rails came off. The way University of Miami did in the 80s. I mean, that's a well-documented dynasty that they rode the same process. And then as of late in the HBCU realm, how North Carolina A&T did it. Rod Broadway came in. They won the Celebration Bowl in 2015. 2016, they went undefeated with a Celebration Bowl championship, and Coach Broadway, kind of like Coach Simmons, We thought left too soon, but Rod Broadway dropped the mic and said, I'm going out on top. Then he handed it over to Sam Washington. Give me my check, Washington. And Sam continued in 18 and 19 to win 2 more Celebration Bowl championships with the system that they had developed together. So those are the options FAMU has. A lot. There's no question. There are a lot of candidates out there, but as far as the most popular from FAMU alumni and supporters, it definitely is Rolle.
Well, in the chat, we got back-to-back. We got people on the other sides of the fence. First of all, good morning to Stephen Campbell. Stephen was the first one in the chat. Appreciate you hanging out with us, Stephen. You were there yesterday as well. We got some folks saying, praying that she sticks with the current system, and then Carolyn Collins coming right back. Time to consider a paradigm shift. So those are 2 opposing ideas there. That's the great thing about these, stories that have all these tentacles. People see it a couple different ways. But Vaughn, what is it, for people on the outside say, oh, okay, I'm kind of interested in this FAMU story. I see they raised some money. They got some names out there. But if they're not super familiar with Billy Rolle, you were kind of given some of the accolades. But he started, well, first of all, he is a FAMU man. Like, played at FAMU, is a Hall of Famer, and then really, made a huge name for herself at the high school level, right?
Y'all call me Mr. FAMU. Let me tell you about Billy Rolle. Billy Rolle, his mother, and his father are in the FAMU Sports Hall of Fame. I can't claim that. No, he came up in a FAMU family, came to FAMU, made his mark, was a great defensive back for Rudy Hubbard. Back in the early 80s. Went on to an amazing high school coaching career, holds the record in Florida for winning state championships with 3 different teams. In Miami, everybody knows the reason that everyone flocks down there for the athletes is because it's really competitive.
Let's put a pin right there, Vaughn. Tell us the importance. It's one thing to win a state championship in high school, but in Florida, this is a different level when you talk about high school football.
Absolutely. Football in the state, Florida, Texas, and then California. I would say in that order. You might have people say Texas, Florida, then California. But the last championship that Alabama won, University of Alabama won, its entire defensive backfield was from South Florida. The entire defensive backfield was from South Florida. The reason the University of Miami can't rebound is because they can't keep their kids home like the system was in the 80s. Jimmy Johnson said, we're not letting these kids get out of here. Let me tell you when that started. It started in 1979 when Rudy Hubbard and the Rattlers beat the University of Miami here in Tallahassee over at Florida State Stadium. Howard Schnellenberger went home and looked at that FAMU roster and said, who beat? This is unfathomable. I got to see who beat me. And FAMU was loaded with kids from South Florida. And from then on, he declared. And so I always say FAMU made the U, because it was that experience that Howard Schnellenberger said, never again are we going to let these great athletes get out of here and they end up beating us. All of those famed players from Miami, they would get a quarterback from California here and there, but all of the great players that made the U and that dynasty came from South Florida. Billy Rolle is beloved in that community. That is why FAMU has been able to get back for a few years. FAMU was shut out from that from recruiting in South Florida because for whatever reason. But instantly, when Billy Rolle got back on the staff, you started seeing an influx of players from South Florida. If you're going to win, you're going to need some players from South Florida. Now you have an ambassador from South Florida. You see kids in the transfer portal that went somewhere else, but they started out in Miami. That's because their coach, and Coach Riz, who's going to be on tomorrow at noon, Coach Devin Rizpress, is going to be on. He can tell you better about recruiting than I can. He's a guy who has done an amazing job for FAMU in that system that they've built. They were doing good. They did good 2018, did good 2019, took off 2020. 2021, 9 wins. 2022, 9 wins. 2022 had a lot of players on that Reds Press recruited. Same thing with 2023. He's recruiting kids that were impact players. And you look at the recruits that he has signed up for this year. This is why so many people prefer to try to run it back with the same system. You're already there at the top. It works. And so some people are not prepared for a wholesale change because it takes time to rebuild a program in a different mold. And so that kind of tells you who Billy Rolle is. He was brought in with Willie Simmons when he came as a special assistant to the head coach. And he fits well in the FAMU community. Has been an upstanding person.
Well, he understands it. Like part of the what would require you to be successful for this job is to understand the Rattler culture, like through and through. We talked about this either yesterday or maybe on New Year's Day. Like, if you don't fit the FAMU culture, like it becomes very obvious very quickly, and it's under a microscope.
It can get odd real fast if someone comes in and doesn't fit the culture. I have to say this. Coach Cozy understands the FAMU culture, as well as Coach Ryan Smith. Those are throwing out names from our list who are on staff, and as does Quinn Gray. They all understand the FAMU culture, have been a part of it long enough to understand how to navigate that. Coach Cozy, Coach Smith, Coach Gray, they've all been to the 220 quarterback club, Rattler, Booster, Luncheon, where, come face to face with supporters and have thrived in there and understand that these are some of the people who help support this program. These are the people who bought the cooling chamber so the players don't even overheat during practice. These are people that supported the nutrition station so that players don't go hungry. And because when Simmons first came to FAMU, he said there were players that at the end of the season were lighter in weight than they started out the season. That was because the lack of that in between, that supplemental nutrition. So that was fixed, which is why it's a stark contrast why everybody said FAMU was a second half team. When they started that nutrition system, the team was much better in the second half. In 2018, and even in 2019, the team was prone to losing games in the second half. But 21, 22, and 23, FAMU was a second half team. They were able to withstand the conditioning from Coach Cole Forney because they had the nutrition to power that.
When you talk about Coach Rolle and his obvious high school connections, because he was so great as a high school coach there and winning multiple state championships, Vaughn, we often hear, I don't think it has to be either or, but just for the sake of conversation, where would you put the importance of, having coaches that have, NFL connections where you can, maybe prepare players, I don't know, maybe a little better for a shot at professional football or have the resources and, people that you can bring in versus a coach with strong high school connections that can maybe, have a stronger pipeline or more access or, call in favors on recruiting or go sit in a dad's and mom's living room and they're like, oh man, you coached me or you coached my, brother, or I remember going to the games when you were winning state championships. How much value do you place? And I guess also how much of a balance do you need to have, connections on both sides, on the younger side of, high school and then the outgoing side, having those pro connections?
Since we're talking about Coach Rolle, basically, along with the high school connections that I just mentioned, several of his players have gone on to the professional ranks. Amari Cooper comes to mind. Teddy Bridgewater comes to mind. His connections to that level as well. He has Chad Ochocinco was one of his players. He developed Chad Ochocinco. and the list goes on and
We
on.
got some free marketing right there, then, Vaughn. That's that's built in. Ocho and
Right,
Shannon Sharp, they running
right,
hard right now.
right. So if you're talking about that, Cozy is well connected as well as Ryan Smith. Ryan Smith, Smitty, Smitty Rock, as we like to call him, is very well connected, very well respected, has coached on the highest level. Um, so, and Quinn Gray, he played on the highest level, has great. Let me tell you, I went to a game after Quinn left just a couple of years ago, and they treat Quinn Gray like royalty over there at the Jacksonville Jaguars. And so he still has connections there from his time in the league. Um, and so we're just talking about the in-house guys. Um, I hope I didn't leave any of those guys off of our list, but I think they all have connections from high school all the way up through the pro ranks with both players and coaches.
All right, Vaughn, what about your offensive coordinator? You're going to get a coach at some point. Who is going to run the offense? I see him down in the chat throwing some names out. Willie Simmons was not on paper the offensive coordinator, but he called the plays. So you lose your coach and your offensive coordinator. What about that spot?
Woo, Lord! I finally was able to look down, and everybody's like, "We want to keep this in place and go back to the Celebration Bowl." Those are in bold letters down there. I'm sorry. What was the question? I mean, I really
offensive coordinator. You got to find the coach.
Okay.
But you also, you lost your de facto OC as well.
Yes, it was funny yesterday in the chat. I guess someone didn't really know and said, "What happened to the offensive coordinator?" And I said he went to Duke. For some reason, since Willie Simmons has been the coach, when he first came, his offensive line coach was labeled the offensive coordinator. As of late, Coach Henry is considered the offensive coordinator. But anybody with half a brain see on the sidelines or hear Coach Simmons talk, he say, "I called, I called, I called." We called that flea flicker, and I looked over at Jeremy, and Jeremy Musa was thinking the same thing I was thinking, so I told him to run it. So Coach Simmons was calling the plays. So FAMU lost their offensive coordinator as well as the head coach. It was one and the same. Now, I don't doubt that Coach Henry has a big, first off, he does a great job. The offensive line was amazing this year, much improved. They built depth in recruiting. And there were times where FAMU just took over games with the offensive line, just running it down people's throat. The Jackson State game, they ran off like the last 6 minutes of the game just on a running drive with no passes. So Coach Henry does an amazing job with the offensive line and is a big part of the offense. As for an offensive coordinator, whoever's the head coach is either going to call the plays themselves or going to have to bring in an offensive coordinator. And that's kind of the reason. Listen, the FAMU defense under Ryan Smith was #1 for part of the year, ended the season as the #2 defense in the country, and they've always been in the top 5 for the last few years. What we do defensively is carry the team. It's carried the team when the offense has been inept, and scored when they needed to. I mean, I literally heard Isaiah Major on the sideline at one of the games say, "We just gonna have to score." When the offense wasn't going and somebody got a pick six. That's not the game where Isaiah got the pick six, but one of the players got a pick six. The defense was really able to control the games for FAMU, and offense gets all the credit, but FAMU won their championship in 2023 because of the defense, and Ryan Smith is the coordinator of that.
All right, you got KJ Black. People are tossing his name around in the chat. We talked about that the other day. He's already employed in the NFL. NFL has a lot of prestige, but at the highest level, you get more money in college when you're coaching. At the Power 5 level. But it's just a little different in the NFL because you don't have to deal with recruiting, and it's just like strictly football, none of the academic stuff and all of that. But all things considered, KJ Black, is he forever NFL from here on out? Would you think?
I've not talked to him since he left. You know, they're going into the playoffs, and which leads me to one of the comments in the chat from Captain Long says, I doubt Coach Gray would leave a head coach gig at Albany State for a coordinator position at his alma mater. I think that's what we saw at Willie. I think that's what a lot of people were saying. Why is Coach Simmons leaving as a head coach at FCS level to go to a position coach at FBS level? That's because he desires to be at that level. So you have to come in somewhere and elevate up to a coordinator, and then that's where, you know, the possibility of being a head coach. It's not as easy to jump from, you know, there was 3 instances where someone came from FCS and went to be a FBS coach, head coach. Coach Gray is at Division II. He did a great job at Albany State. I was able to catch a few of their games this year. And in my mind, I saw an offense that was really trying to be a Billy Joe Gulf Coast offense. I think he was missing a couple of pieces, but I just think about putting that system into FAMU, who at times, you know, the offense was not able to score as much as the fans would like. They were scoring enough for Coach Simmons. The goal was to outscore the opponent. But I think an exciting brand of offense with him being the offensive coordinator would work. So you know, and he would be moving up from Division II to Division I in the FCS level, which I understand he desires to coach and be a head coach at one day. So it's the Coach Simmons and Coach Gray's ability to move up and go be a position, and at least Coach Gray could possibly come in as a coordinator. Those things kind of parallel.
All right, quickly here, just want to say thank you to all the people who purchased a FAMU championship belt yesterday. Show it to them, Miles. Show them the belt, Miles. You had to be here yesterday to get that joke. We had about 6, maybe 7 orders yesterday, Vaughn. So those are going out. You should see those very soon. But I just wanted to just say thank you to our supporters who saw that belt and said, I need that in my life.
Yeah, I personally delivered one yesterday to some people who were very, very happy when they saw it.
How did that go? What was their reaction?
It was amazing. Their eyes lit up, and they didn't even want to touch it. I mean, they literally put it down, and they were like, "It's so pretty," and just set it on the table, and you know, didn't even want to. They never took it out of plastic while I was there. That's how precious they treated it.
Boy, they're gonna treat it like black people furniture back in the day. That thing's gonna stay wrapped up. Only bring it out for company.
I get the feeling it might stay wrapped up like grandma's couch.
Well, we got the link. It's in the description of this video, or you can just look up the HBCU Game Day Shopify store. We have more items in there for sale as well. But thank you for your support. And thank you for the people just in the chat hanging out with us every day. I know we're doing more live content here in 2024. And just thank you guys so much for your support. I know it's been FAMU week. I know. We're going to get to everybody. We got basketball on the horizon, but the story right now is FAMU and Texas Southern. Vaughn yesterday. Here's one thing I like, Vaughn. The National Alumni Associations across the board are starting to flex. Texas Southern's National Alumni Board sent out a statement yesterday. I'm not going to read it, and I'm not going to quote it directly, but the energy in that statement was, can y'all hurry up and pick a coach? They were like, we not with them. We want a coach just like you do. So I think the power that the National Alumni Association showed at FAMU with their efforts to raise money, maybe you didn't get the desired outcome, but you moved quickly, you moved swiftly, and you moved with power. And now Texas Southern's National Alumni Association trying to put some oomph behind their organization as well. And Vaughn, I think that's something that's part of the process. Like, your alumni have to show, that they have some power too. And sometimes you got to remind people of your power, whether that's, through financial or getting out there and saying something about something, whatever it might do. Because if you want to raise and elevate the stock of your program, all of the stakeholders involved have to play their part. So I am liking what I'm seeing across the board with the National Alumni Associations. But that being said, we also saw reports yesterday Texas Southern is interviewing more people. Vaughn,
Right.
I don't
Right.
know if
Right. I don't.
but they knew Clarence McKinney was not going to get renewed. All right, so they might not have fired him the day the season ended, but they knew he wasn't coming back. Like they knew, right? So the season ended. If you didn't, November, right? Like if you didn't go to the SWAC championship game November, by Thanksgiving you were done. So we're sitting at almost 6-7 weeks now. Like,
yeah, that's not good. It doesn't look good. And speaking of the alumni associations, I got to recognize somebody who's watching us. Carolyn Collins, longtime FAMU National Alumni Association governmental coordinator. She is the person that tells FAMU what the objectives should be to tell your representative to help support FAMU. So Dr. Collins, thank you for joining us. Always good to hear from her. She says we need to respect our coaches, maintain our players within the portal, get our players recruited to the NFL. Thanks. I could not agree with you more, Dr. Collins, and thank you for watching us today. You've been an asset to the FAMU National Alumni Association. That's one of the reasons they've been built up, to be able to make the commitment and turn the way they have. So we thank you for all your great years of service to the FAMU National Alumni Association. She's like everybody's grandma. I mean, and like I said, I'm glad she's on, and because we need to hear from everybody. Brian Fulford, I see you on there from ONG Strike Zone. Great show you guys did last night. Brian doesn't hold anything back, man. I tell you, he's a good friend. He's come on here for us. We gotta get him on more. He and Kelvin Rozier and that crew. They do a great job weekly, ONG Strike Zone here. But yeah,
do they serve better snacks when you go on their show, Vaughn? Do they give you better snacks?
They don't.
Than I do when you come here.
They don't have better. Listen, my wife and I grabbed our pockets full of snacks when we left the studio after the celebration. Well, I was like, Tolly got it going on up here.
If nothing else, I will feed my people.
Full of snacks.
I will feed my people now. If nothing else, if you come here in person, I will feed you.
Oh wow! I see in the chat that Benedict hasn't named their coach to replace Chinnis Berriak. Is that true? If that's true, yeah, they need to get moving as well.
Now look, I ain't gonna lie. Division II can move kind of slow. All right, it can move kind of slow. There's less pressure. Not that their fans don't want to coach as well, but at the D1 level, you can't take 2 months to hire a coach. Like I don't think that's a good look personally. I mean, and then when it sounds like you have changed strategy like midstream, like it would be one thing if you just no names have come up, like you're like, all right, we're playing this long game, but there was clearly someone told Fred McNair, just come on, this is your job.
Somebody told, no doubt.
The man is not a fool. He is not a fool to leave one job without the assurance that he has another job. No one's going to do that. And part of it, you can choose to do whatever you want to do at your institution. But I personally like Fred McNair. I think he's a great coach. I think he's a nice. I've never had a bad experience. I mean, I haven't played for him. I haven't been out there running up the hills in 100-degree weather. I might think differently if that was the case. But all my dealings with Fred McNair. Just someone I really, really respect, and I just feel like he's gotten a really bad deal here. It's just because when we talk about Vaughn, when we talk about how much respect we're going to have for the people that choose HBCU, forever. I'm not saying Fred McNair is going to coach HBCUs forever, but he kind of gives you that vibe, right? Like he's going to be around. He doesn't seem like a guy who wants to go anywhere else, if we're going to laud that, if those are the ones we're going to respect more than people who maybe have ambitions to do something else, then we need to treat them right. Like, you can't be like, oh man, everybody should stay. This is what you ought to do, and then they do that, and then they get a rough deal.
You know, back in the day when we wanted to cook a meal, you had to turn on that stovetop or turn on the oven itself and fry, bake, or broil, or whatever you want to cook. At some point, people are now adding microwaves in. They get microwave meals and they want to get it done fast. That same comparison can be done with coaches. Several coaches no longer have that conventional oven theory. They have a different objective, and it's more like the microwave. I can't say all of them, and can't say it's that instant, that big of a, but I just use that as a comparison. It's kind of like I compare Willie Simmons a lot, his exit a lot, to Rod Broadway. He ended on a perfect season. What else could he do? What else was there for Broadway to do? He handed it over to Sam Washington, which turned out to be a great decision, and they kept his system in place and continued to excel. So
for a while,
huh?
For a while.
For a while, yeah.
For a while.
Well, that's the point.
Different
you
day
ride
over
it
there
until
now.
the wheels. None of the systems work forever, but you ride it until the wheels fall off. They didn't stop themselves and go try to hire Buddy Pugh to come in and take over North Carolina A&T. You know what I'm saying? They didn't try to go get somebody else who had been successful to come in to North Carolina A&T. When Broadway left, they were like, no, this system's working pretty good. Let's see if and they got 2 more coveted Celebration Bowl HBCU national championships out of it. Ismail Rentz has a good quote in here. He says, coaches FCS to FBS. I keep hearing how difficult it is. I guess I would like a show dedicated to the topic with facts and data in lieu of what we feel. Currently, this conversation disparages HBCU football. That is a very great comment. We will do the research. And
I know a guy.
You know a guy? Yeah. We'll do the research and try to get that. I think that is a very good topic that would be interesting to the HBCU nation. Shouts out to the North Carolina A&T Aggies. I saw them at one of the parades. Was it Macy's they were at?
Yeah, my mom texted me. She was watching it on TV on New Year's Day.
I saw some footage. I'm not the band guy, but I did see them at one of the national parades, and someone else. Was it Alabama?
Talladega was in London.
Talladega.
Yeah. Celebrating across the pond. So
big props to the HBCU bands for representing the HBCU culture.
All right, Vaughn, let me ask you this. Knowing what you know now, again, let's go back and reset. We've been on about 30 minutes here. Let's take it back to the top. Billy Rolle. Yesterday, you thought one thing. Today, you think something different because some new information presented itself. What is that new information?
Listen, as soon as he posted that, he's staying in retirement, that he had to take his name out of the hat for the sake of retirement, literally people from the Florida retirement system who are familiar with him were like, no, you are eligible. And they got him some information that he indeed was eligible to return as a member of the FAMU coaching staff in January if the opportunity presented itself. So,
which says a lot about him that people went out of their way to hook him up with that information.
It does. It does, and it was instant, fast, and thorough. It wasn't what Cousin Willie said. It was what a person working in that position, helped inform him of where he was. And let me tell you, being on HBCU game day every day puts me in a central spot. Sometimes people think I know more than I know, but I never say anything I pretty much say everything I know. If I haven't said it, I don't know, and I don't speculate on air. If I do, I'll say it. Hey, I'm just speculating.
Right,
You know,
right.
I always preface it, old school. But I've gotten so many calls from big traditional stakeholders in FAMU in reference to this head coaching situation.
The money people. That's you saying the money people have been calling you.
Money people, power people. It's a lot, and I can only imagine what Texas Southern is going through. You know, with how long theirs is dragged out. FAMU's is not relatively not long at all. You don't want VPAD Sykes to just make a rash, quick decision. You know, give her time to vet. You know, all sides of things. I think she's on a good. I don't know where she is in the search, but I would imagine she's on a good pace of talking to and vetting. You know, this is her first time as athletic director hiring a football coach.
Yes, and I would advise her stay out of the comments. Tiffany, stay out of the comments.
Yes, stay way away. Stay way away. Don't just but yeah, this is her first time making a head coach decision. That is nothing like hiring a softball coach, a tennis coach, a bowling coach. It's not even like hiring a basketball coach. A football coach is so high profile on a campus that it is a major decision. And you understand that you know, I've never seen or heard, you know, especially at FAMU, of an athletic director recommending a tennis coach and they not accept it. I've never heard of them, you know, recommended a bowling coach, and I love the tennis coach, Coach Goldthreet. She's a FAMU Sports Hall of Famer, and so I'm not talking down on tennis. I'm just making a comparison. But when it comes to football, there's always such scrutiny behind it, and you have to have your ducks in a row, and I think that's what's happening. So at some point, we're going to see a list of candidates come out. Until then, all we can do is speculate. We listen to our viewers.
Do you think we'll have that level of transparency where we will publicly see a list or it be discussed?
Or in Florida, yes, they will. The sunshine laws in Florida. At some point, she's going to have to bring a list in front of the board of trustees.
Okay.
And then public comment is allowed in those board of trustees meetings. So there's no sneaking a coach in. Not saying anybody would, but just in Florida, with what they call the sunshine laws, open records, you know, at some point a list will be presented in front of the board of trustees, and at that point, the general alumni and general public and anybody on the earth who has internet will have access to see the thought process of the vice president.
And then they will, so at the board of trustees, those public meetings, people, if anybody has something that they want to say, that they'll have the public comment portion during that.
They get 3 minutes to say whatever they want to say.
I hope some of y'all don't show up.
Huh?
I said, I looked down in the comments. I said, I hope some of y'all don't show up. Just keep it on the internet. Don't go down there wasting our time on the microphone. I'm just kidding. You have that right. Knock yourself out. Just jokes. Vaughn, do you think that the timetable you had in your head yesterday that you thought, you know, if we go past National Signing Day that's coming up, we would be okay? With new information that you have today, do you still think there's that much of a runway for that timetable that you had yesterday in your head?
I would think the VPAD has had opportunity to sit back. The end of the year has closed out and the new year has started, and this is obviously a big thing on her plate. She does have spring sports about to start, so you know, working in athletics, you know, everybody thinks football season is the worst season, but the spring is when you have so many sports overlapping. So I'm sure she's got to get those teams off to a good start. But still, this has to be a high priority on her register. So I think she'll let us know when she's ready to make the decision. And, then the university administration, as well as the FAMU Board of Trustees, will make that decision, and they'll decide on, who she can negotiate with as the next head coach of Florida A&M.
All right. So Vaughn, you're checking comments. As
I am checking comments.
People are talking there. I'm looking to see what's going on there as well. Vaughn, let me ask you. Right now, and this would be purely speculation because we're giving people information and we're also trying to have an entertaining and engaging conversation here. If you just had to guess, we're just playing a guessing game. Do you think everyone that Tiffany Sykes would want to have a conversation with, there's at least been the outreach has already occurred, if not a full conversation at this point?
I would think so. I think if there's a coach she's interested in and they're interested in this job, I would think she's contacted them, unless there are restrictions for talking to coaches under contract. So there could be a holdup from a university saying, no, we don't want to grant you access to talk to our coach. There is a strict guideline there in some people's contracts and at some institutions. But I think.
But we all know the back channels. You talk to the man
right.
Sitting next to the man,
yeah.
Sitting next to the man to get
doesn't
to the man.
Doesn't say you can't talk to the agent, So all these coaches have agents. So I would think she has made contact with her pool and is now going through information now. That's what I would think. I like I said, as I say when I'm speculating, I will say I'm speculating. I'm speculating that she's probably contacted everyone.
All right. The movement, the portal, jumps daily. Has all been quiet on the western front or the southern front down at FAMU since we talked yesterday.
Well, the portal is closed right now. It's in a blackout period. I don't know.
Okay, we already hit the blackout. All right.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel like there is a blackout period because.
Right. You still see things happening. But good news for FAMU, a big lineman from Marshall is visiting this weekend. That is good news that there still is interest from players desiring to move to FAMU without Coach Simmons.
Well, that is good news indeed as the recruiting continues. All right, Vaughn. So Vaughn Wilson bringing us the latest news on the search for a head coach at FAMU. Billy Rolle yesterday thought he might not be in the running because of his retirement, but people in the know, people in official positions let him know, no, actually, you're good. No, you're fine. You can be the next head coach at FAMU if they wanted to. If they wanted to hire you tomorrow, it would be fine. So I know the information we previously had was he would have to wait till after July 1, but that's no longer the case. And Vaughn, we kind of had this conversation internally at game day. Would you consider Billy Rolle as a person that could officially be labeled as a top candidate, one of the top candidates for the job?
I won't speak for VP Sykes, but as far as for the alumni, there is a great deal of excitement around the potential of Billy Rolle becoming the next head coach.
And that's where Tan Rather will leave it. He brings us the information. He gives us his credited speculation to try to get us thinking and engaged. And Vaughn, I think this is a story that we will continue to talk about. You have lined up a guest for us tomorrow. Again, if people missed it,
Yep.
who are we talking to tomorrow?
I'm talking to FAMU recruiting coordinator, Devin Rispress. He won't be talking about the coaching job at all. We've been wanting to get him on for a while because he's such a great recruiter, and won the recruiter of the year by a few agencies. So we want to get him on tomorrow, talk about his process and what he's looking to do to help rebuild the Rattlers for next year.
All right. So if you have your questions, any questions that you might have for recruiting, because look, it's one of the most important factors of college football, right? So you might wonder, like, how does it go down? Like, how do you seal the deal? Like, how long is the communication process with prospects? Any questions you might have for recruiting, when you should see it later today. We'll have the thumbnail and we'll have the link goes up that says, hey, joining us on Friday at noon you can go ahead and jump in the chat before it starts. So get your questions in there and let us know, and we'll have another great conversation tomorrow.
And one of the greatest reasons I want him on is so people can stop emailing, instant messaging, texting me some kid's highlights and say, hey, how do I get him to FAMU? He's going to be on tomorrow. Tell all your friends, your cousin, your uncle and them that got somebody they want to come to FAMU. Have them on tomorrow. Coach Riz will be on the show, and you can ask him. That's who needs to see it.
Me, you, your mama, and your cousin too. Stop texting Vaughn. Vaughn, what is the rate of your inundation of calls? Has it peaked? Is it going down about this head coach position that's open at FAMU?
It just never ends. While I'm home, I have to leave my phones on the charger, or they'll be dead. It's just people want to know, and the athletic director cannot tip her hand. She can't. She's people. She can't be open about this because it could compromise somebody who's at a sitting institution. You don't want to compromise somebody you had a contact with at a sitting coach at an institution, because that could make that fan base negatively look at that coach. Right. So she's doing the right thing and operating in silence. At some point, we should hear a time frame. I think that's what everybody's a little anxious about, the time frame, hearing the time frame. That's about the only information that I think she will and should divulge probably next, and then going through her process, through the FAMU HR process. You don't want to screw that up, because that could disqualify somebody or open you up to a lawsuit. So HR is one of those things that there are limitations on, even the Sunshine Law. The Florida legislature passed a law a couple years ago to protect coaches and high-level administrators in this situation, so universities can work a little bit, in the dark, in the shadows, as not to expose somebody that's a sitting administrator or a coach at another institution.
Especially if it was some schools.
Oh yeah.
Like your coach wanted to come leave y'all.
Right. It could compromise that. So I applaud the legislator for making that rule, to protect that. But
Florida politics did something right. Way to go.
Right.
Way to go.
Yep. Give them credit. So I just think within the next couple of weeks, it should move pretty fast.
Are these real-time weeks or Texas Southern weeks? Which
Florida weeks.
Florida weeks or Texas weeks? Texas weeks a little longer.
They do everything bigger in Texas.
All right, we kid because we love everybody. All right, well, Vaughn Wilson, we appreciate it, brother. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll talk more FAMU. We'll get more into the recruiting and get some inside access and hopefully get some good information. Have another entertaining show on Friday. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. I'm Tali Carr in Atlanta. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Shout out to Miles back in the back. Miles, take us out. Show him the belt, Miles. Show him the belt. All right, you guys have a great day.